It happened about 2 years ago, when I was living alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. I worked nights as a hospital janitor, so most of my mornings started around 5 p.m., and I'd get home at 3 or 4 a.m. when everything outside was dead silent. It was one of those nights when the world felt completely asleep. No traffic, no wind, just the heavy stillness that only exists between 3 and 4 a.m. I just made myself some instant noodles and was sitting in the kitchen scrolling through my phone when I heard a sound, a knock. It came from the window behind me. That didn't make sense because I lived on the second floor. At first I thought it was pipes, or maybe a branch hitting the glass, but it came again. 2 quick knocks, not random, rhythmic. I froze, listening. The third knock came softer this time, like whoever, or whatever, was out there didn't want to be heard anymore. I turned around slowly. The blinds were drawn, but I could see the faint outline of a shadow standing behind them. Whoever it was tall enough to reach the window from the outside. I didn't move for a few seconds. The only sound was the low hum of my refrigerator and my own breathing. I tried to reason it out. Maybe someone climbed up the fire escape by mistake. Maybe a drunk neighbor got confused. But the shadow behind the blinds didn't shift or stumble. It just stood there, perfectly still. Then, another knock. This time, lighter, more deliberate. I grabbed my phone, turned the flashlight on, and inched toward the window. Every step made the floor creak. When I reached the blinds, I hesitated. Something inside me said, "Don't lift them." But curiosity won. I hooked one finger under the edge and raised it just an inch. 2 pale eyes stared back at me. They were too close to the glass, almost pressed against it. The skin around them was grayish, the pupils wide and dark. I dropped the blinds instantly and stumbled backward, knocking over my chair. My pulse was thudding so loud I could barely think. Then came the voice, soft, almost polite. "Let me in." It was a man's voice, calm, quiet, and way too close. I didn't answer. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, whispering what was happening. The dispatcher stayed on the line while I moved into the hallway, away from the kitchen. The knocking stopped. For a full minute, there was silence. Then, faintly, I heard footsteps, slow ones, moving toward the far end of my apartment. The only thing over there was my bedroom and the fire escape window. The dispatcher kept talking to me, trying to keep me calm, but her voice started breaking up, static cutting through the line. Then I heard her say something that didn't make sense. "Sir, you said you're on the second floor?" "Yes," I whispered. A pause. "There's no one on your fire escape. We have a unit right below your window." My blood ran cold. If there was no one on the fire escape, then whoever had been knocking was inside. The dispatcher's words kept echoing in my head. "There's no one on your fire escape." I pressed myself against the hallway wall, holding my breath. The apartment suddenly felt too small, like the air had thickened. Then I heard it again. Those slow, dragging footsteps shifting across my bedroom floor. Not hurried, not searching, just pacing. The dispatcher asked, "Do you have a weapon? A place to hide?" I whispered back. "My bathroom. No lock. Get inside and stay quiet. Officers are 2 minutes away." 2 minutes felt like a lifetime. I crept down the hallway, every board creaking under me. As I passed my bedroom door, the footsteps stopped. The silence on the other side of the wall felt worse than the sound. I held my breath. Then something scraped lightly against my bedroom door, soft, slow, like a fingertip trailing along the wood. I ducked into the bathroom and pressed my weight against the door, even though it wouldn't matter if someone pushed. It had no lock, only a worn metal knob. I turned off the light. Seconds crawled by. I could hear movement again, heavier this time, someone walking closer. Then the floorboards right outside the bathroom groaned under weight. He was standing there, right outside. A shadow slipped through the gap under the door, long and unmoving. Then came a whisper, low and breathy, inches from the wood. "You saw me?" I covered my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. The knob turned slightly, once, then again, harder. I braced both hands against the door. The knob kept twisting, faster now, shaking lightly. Then, suddenly, It stopped. Silence. For a moment I thought he'd left, until I heard a slow inhale right at the bottom edge of the door, like he was lying on the floor with his face inches from mine. That's when the banging started. Not from my door, but from the front of the apartment. Heavy fists, slamming hard. "Police! Open up!" The shadow under the door jerked back. I heard fast footsteps sprinting across the apartment. The scrape of a window sliding open. Then nothing. When the officers finally got inside, they found the fire escape window wide open. Cold air blowing in. Curtains swaying. But no one out there. And no footprints. Not even dust disturbed on the metal steps. It was as if no one had ever climbed in at all. The police stayed for almost an hour, checking every corner of my apartment, every closet, every window frame. They kept asking the same questions. "Are you sure you saw someone? Could it have been a reflection? Are you certain the knocks came from the window?" I didn't blame them. Nothing looked broken, nothing was moved, and there were no signs of forced entry. But I knew what I'd seen. I knew what I'd heard breathing under the bathroom door. I spent the next few nights sleeping on the couch with every light on. Nothing happened at first. No footsteps, no knocks, just silence. Then, on the fourth night, something strange happened. I woke up at 3:11 a.m. exactly. No sound, no reason, just wide awake. My apartment was quiet, but my phone screen was lit. A notification. Motion detected. Kitchen window. My heart dropped. I forced myself to look. The camera showed my kitchen window blinds softly swaying, like someone had just brushed past them. But the scariest part wasn't the movement. It was the reflection. For a split second, in the glass, I saw the faint outline of a face pressed against the outside, pale, expressionless, and far too high off the ground for any normal person to reach. The footage cut out. The camera went offline. I moved out 2 weeks later. But sometimes, when I'm awake at night in my new place, I swear I still hear it. 2 soft knocks on the window from the second floor. This happened when I was living with my older sister for a few months after college. She worked early morning shifts, so most nights I was alone in the apartment after midnight. Just me, the TV, and whatever leftover noise came from the street below. We had one of those old box-style TVs in the living room. It didn't have cable, just basic channels and a built-in antenna. Most of the time, it sat unplugged. We used our phones or laptops instead. One night around 2 a.m., as I was heading to bed, I heard a faint hiss coming from the living room. A soft, steady static sound. The TV was on, filling the dark room with nothing but black and white snow. I figured my sister must have left it plugged in and it turned on from a power surge or something. I walked over and grabbed the remote, but the static changed, not the sound, the picture. It shifted like the TV was trying to form an image behind the static. Shapes, shadows, maybe a face, I couldn't tell. Then the channel number flashed across the top left corner. Channel 9. The strange thing? We didn't have a Channel 9. It didn't exist on our TV. And while I stood there, staring at the screen, something spoke through the static, very quietly, almost like a whisper. It said my name. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at the static, wondering if I imagined it, if maybe I heard my own breath or the hum of the TV, and my brain filled in the rest. But then it said my name again, clearer this time, not loud, but intentional. I muted the TV immediately. The voice kept going for half a second before it faded with the static. My hands were shaking. I unplugged the TV from the wall and backed away. The screen dimmed slowly, until it went completely black, leaving my reflection staring back at me. I stayed up for a while after that, scrolling through my phone, trying to convince myself it was just audio interference or some weird broadcast bleed-through. Eventually, I fell asleep on the couch. Around 4:30 a.m., I woke up to the same static sound, but the TV was still unplugged. I jumped up, heart pounding, and looked around. The sound wasn't coming from the TV. It was coming from the small DVD player under it. It wasn't even turned on. Before I could process that, the TV made a clicking sound, the same sound it makes when it powers on. And then the screen lit up again. Plugged or not, with the same swirling static, same channel number in the corner, 9. This time, the static wasn't uniform. There were moving shapes behind it, human shapes. At first they looked like shadows. Then one stepped closer, its outline clearer through the grain. A tall figure, head slightly tilted, like it was looking down at me through the screen. The voice came again, but not a whisper this time. More like someone speaking very softly while standing inches from a microphone. "Don't turn away." My whole body went cold. I grabbed the remote off the coffee table and started hitting every button. Power, volume, channel change. Nothing worked. Then I heard footsteps. Not from the TV, from the hallway behind me. Slow, uncertain, like someone walking barefoot on carpet. My sister wasn't home. She didn't get back until after sunrise. Every hair on my neck stood up. I turned my head just enough to look into the hallway. Nothing there. But the footsteps continued until they were right behind the couch. The TV flickered. The tall figure on the screen leaned forward until its face filled the static. Features blurry but unmistakably human. Then, both in the room behind me and from the TV speakers at the same time, I heard breathing. Slow, steady, right at the back of my neck. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. But when I turned back to the TV, the static stopped. Instead of shadows, instead of noise, the screen now showed my living room. Live. In real time. From inside the apartment. From an angle high in the corner near the ceiling. There was no camera there. And in the top corner of the static-filled image, the channel number blinked slowly. 9. Then another blink. 9. Then a final blink. Look. The word stayed on the screen for maybe 3 seconds. Look. Blinking softly through the static like a warning I didn't want to understand. But eventually, the letters dissolved back into snow, and the camera view of my living room returned. Only it wasn't quite my living room anymore. The angle was wrong. The lighting was off. Everything looked darker in the broadcast, like the room inside the TV was the same space but wasn't connected to mine anymore. And then I saw movement in the broadcast version of my living room. A shadow passed along the far wall, tall, thin, walking slowly behind my sister's bookshelf. There was nothing there in the real room, but in the TV's reflection of the room, something was moving, getting closer. I backed away until my calves hit the coffee table. The figure stepped into view on Channel 9. A man, or the shape of one, standing exactly where I was standing just seconds earlier, right behind the couch, but his face was blurred entirely by static, like it had been erased. Then he turned, not toward the camera in the TV, toward me. Even through the static, I could tell his head was tilted, eyes focused directly out of the screen, like he could see me watching him. I tried to run, but the sound hit me first, the same soft whispering that had crawled through the static earlier. Only now, it was layered, like a dozen voices speaking at once. Then the screen went full static again, but this time it was loud. The speakers roaring like a storm was inside the TV. Over the noise, one voice pushed through, a deeper tone, more human, more direct. "Turn around." I didn't. I forced myself to look only at the TV, because I knew if I turned around, I'd see him standing there. I could feel the air shift behind me, like someone tall was leaning over my shoulder. For the first time since the whole thing started, the TV finally responded. The static faded, the sound cut out, and the screen went completely black, reflecting only my terrified face. No figure behind me, no shadow, just darkness. I ran to my room, shut the door, and didn't sleep until dawn. The next morning, my sister came home and found the TV unplugged, the DVD player pulled apart on the floor, and all the living room lights on. When I tried to explain what happened, she chuckled nervously and said, "Maybe it was a dream." But then she paused. Her face changed, and she said something I'll never forget. "Channel 9? That's the channel Dad said he used to hear Mom on." Our mother died 10 years ago. I didn't want to ask her what she meant by that, but she looked shaken, like she'd said something she didn't mean to say out loud. "Our old house," she continued quietly. "Dad said the TV used to turn on by itself late at night, always to Channel 9. He said it was just grief or dreams, but he stopped sleeping in the living room after that. I told her everything that had happened. The static, the voice, the live feed that didn't exist. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she didn't try to laugh it off. She just asked, "Did you hear her voice?" I didn't know how to answer. The whisper coming from the static didn't sound like anyone I recognized. But the last voice, the one that told me to turn around, it didn't sound like a stranger. That night, I slept with my door locked. My sister unplugged the TV completely and pushed it into a corner facing the wall. We didn't talk about Channel 9 again. A few days later, she left for work at 5 a.m. like usual. I woke up around 7 to get some water and froze in the hallway. The old TV was on again, facing forward, static filling the screen, the number 9 glowing faintly in the corner. And this time, the whisper wasn't saying my name. It was saying my sister's, over and over, softly, almost like someone was trying to wake her up. This happened 3 years ago, during a late-night drive through rural Nevada. I'd been on the road for almost 8 hours, trying to make it to my cousin's place before morning. The highway was empty, no cars behind me, none ahead, just long stretches of desert, and darkness swallowing everything outside my headlights. Around 2:45 a.m., my fuel light came on. I wasn't panicked at first. My GPS showed a small gas station about 6 miles ahead, right off the highway. But as I got closer, the road felt wrong. The air looked hazy. The temperature dropped suddenly, and my radio started crackling, even though it wasn't turned on. When the gas station finally appeared, it looked abandoned. One flickering light above the storefront, and a single pump standing beside it. No cars, no workers, no sound. But the open sign in the window was glowing bright red. I pulled up beside the pump, relieved I wouldn't get stranded. When I stepped out, the air felt colder, heavier, like the atmosphere wasn't matching the world I'd been driving in. As I reached for the pump handle, a voice came from somewhere behind me. Low, flat, not angry, just wrong. "You shouldn't stop here." I turned around fast. Nobody was there, just darkness stretching across the desert. I froze with my hand still gripping the pump handle, staring out into the empty desert. The voice had sounded close, like someone standing just a few feet behind me, but there was nothing there, just the faint buzzing of the single flickering light above the storefront and the low hum of my engine. I told myself it was the wind, or exhaustion, or maybe a radio frequency bleeding through. I pushed the pump handle into the gas tank, but the moment I squeezed it, a sharp static pop echoed from the speaker on the pump, like it had just been turned on after years of silence. Then a voice came through it, not the same voice as before. This one was higher, female, speaking slowly as if choosing each word carefully. "Don't look inside." I stared at the pump speaker. It wasn't connected to anything. No wires, no card reader, nothing that should have allowed audio. Just a piece of sun-faded metal. The hose vibrated in my hand, like pressure was building in the line, but no fuel came out. I tried again. Nothing. The open sign flickered in the window. I turned toward the store, squinting through the glass. The interior was dark except for a single aisle light deeper inside. The shelves were dusty. Some were knocked over. Products lay scattered on the floor as if abandoned in a hurry. Behind the counter, something caught my eye. A shape, a tall silhouette, not moving, not slouched, just standing there, watching. I stepped back instinctively, then my eyes adjusted, and I realized the figure wasn't behind the counter. It was a cardboard cutout, a faded advertisement of some smiling man holding a soda. I exhaled slowly, laughing nervously at myself. Then the cutout shifted, just half an inch, a slight tilt, as if someone behind it had bumped it or stepped away. I backed up fast, bumping into my car door. My heart was pounding now, but my tank was nearly empty. I didn't have the luxury of leaving without fuel. I leaned into the car, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. When I shined it at the store again, the open sign was off, completely dark. A second ago, it had been glowing. Then my phone buzzed, a notification from my GPS. But it didn't show directions. It showed a warning. "This location is no longer active. No services available." I lowered the phone slowly. The entire gas station facade looked older now, like the moment the open sign turned off. Everything aged 20 years. The paint was peeling. The windows were cracked. The light above the doors sputtered weakly, then died. I was about to get back in the car when, from the far side of the building, a soft scraping sound drifted through the quiet, metal dragging across concrete, slow and steady. It grew louder, coming closer. Then that same low voice, the first one I'd heard, spoke again, closer this time. Right by the side of the building. You should leave, before he sees you. My chest tightened. There was more than one person here. At least one I could hear, and another, the he, that I hadn't seen yet. My instincts finally kicked in. I dropped the pump handle and moved toward the driver's door. But before I could reach it, the scraping sound on the far side of the building stopped. Completely. Not faded, not slowed, just cut off, like whoever was dragging the metal knew I was listening. I pressed myself against the car, scanning the darkness. The desert wind finally picked up, brushing sand across the pavement, but it didn't drown out the next sound. Footsteps, not fast, not threatening, just heavy, deliberate steps circling the back of the building toward the pump canopy. I ducked down behind my car, heart slamming against my ribs. I peeked under the vehicle, nothing visible yet, but the footsteps were getting closer, crunching the gravel just a few feet away. Then the voice came again, not through the pump speaker this time, not from the wind, but from somewhere low, near the ground. Please go. It was the female voice. It sounded strained now, like she was whispering through gritted teeth, begging. I swallowed hard and stayed crouched. The footsteps paused, then turned directly toward my car. A tall shadow stretched across the pavement, impossibly tall. Long arms, shoulders slumped forward, like it was bending to avoid hitting the overhead canopy. I held my breath. The figure stopped right at the edge of the pump area, just outside the puddle of light. I couldn't see its face, couldn't see its clothes, just that towering silhouette. Then it spoke. Not the female voice, not the warning voice. A deep, broken croak, like someone who hadn't used their vocal cords in decades. I see you. My whole body went cold. The shadow bent lower, as if sniffing the air. I heard its fingers scrape lightly across the concrete, long nails dragging slow circles. I couldn't stay hidden. If it circled the car, it would see me crouched there. So I made a choice, the only one I had. I stood up, flung the driver's door open, and dove inside. The shadow twitched violently at the sudden motion. Not startled, excited. Its head jerked toward me, its body lurching forward with unnatural speed. I slammed the door and hit the lock. The handle twisted immediately, as if someone outside was testing it with enormous strength. Then something heavy slammed against the rear of the car, rocking it hard enough to make the windows rattle. I didn't look back. I turned the key, floored the gas pedal, and shot out of the parking lot, tires squealing on the cracked pavement. In the mirror, I saw it for half a second, a tall shape standing in the middle of the lot, head cocked unnaturally, watching my taillights fade into the dark. Not running, not angry, just watching. I didn't slow down for almost 20 minutes. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see that tall figure lumbering after me in the dark. But the road behind me stayed empty, just endless black highway and desert. Eventually, I reached another town, one with real lights, real cars, and a 24-hour gas station that looked alive. I pulled in shaking, barely able to breathe, and stumbled inside. The cashier looked up and froze. "You okay, man? You look pale." I tried to explain what happened. The voices, the abandoned station, the thing that chased me. But the moment I mentioned the location, his expression changed. Not disbelief, recognition. "That place burned down in 1998, he said quietly. "Nobody goes there. They fenced it off years ago." I told him there was no fence. The pumps were still standing. The store had looked abandoned, but not burned. He just shook his head, backing up slightly like he didn't want to hear anymore. "People see things out there," he muttered. "My dad said to the station workers, they didn't all get out." I left without pressing him. I filled my tank in silence and drove the rest of the night with every light in the car on. But the part that still keeps me up. A week later, while cleaning out my car, I found something wedged deep under the back seat, stuck so tightly I had to pry it out. A rusted metal name badge, half melted, unreadable, except for one word stamped across the bottom, attendant, and on the back of it, scratched in uneven letters, I saw you too.